So the GTX 1050 is right around the corner, and right now they're advertising it towards people who have budget-minded computers or ones that were kind of built from manufacturers and then purchased in store, like a Dell or an HP or even a Toshiba or Asus desktop that does not have a GPU in it. And what I wanted to do was, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who are worried about opening their computer if they have a kind of a pre-built kind of lower model computer to put the card into it. Now, I thought I would take this computer. This isn't a very good one. It's an Inspiron 560 desktop, has a Pentium dual core, 4 gigs of RAM, and a 320 gig hard drive. Not a very strong computer, but it does have a PCI Express slot, so it should support the 1050. We'll check the power supply while they're in there, and I'll show you how to do that, just so you can make sure it'll support it. Now, the 1050 does not take a lot of power to move it along, but you want to make sure you have at least a 250 to 300 watt power supply to make sure that the card does not strain the power supply more than it needs to. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up. I'm going to show you guys how to refurbish the inside, and I'll show you how to put a video card in. I don't have a 1050, but I do have a placeholder card that I can at least show you where to put it in and how to put it in. And I'll show you guys, if you want, you can add expansion cards while you're in. Maybe you want to put a Wi-Fi card in, or you want to put a USB 3 card in. I'll show you where those slots are. And we'll get started with that right now. So first I wanted to go over a few things you need to do this. Definitely need a Phillips head screwdriver. I would prefer to have a magnetic tip one like this. Flathead would also come in handy. If you have a flathead, I would get that out too. You want isopropyl alcohol, preferably 91% if possible. 70% will work if that's what's available at your local store. A paper towel, a rag of some kind. We're going to wipe a few things down. A toothbrush. No one ever uses these, but get a dry toothbrush because we will be cleaning up things like fans and things like that. Definitely grab one of these. Soft bristle, of course, nothing too rigid. You don't want to damage the motherboard. And you need a tube of thermal compound. This is a very large one. Don't need one this big. If you go to Radio Shack, you can get some Arctic Silver or some Arctic Ceramique. That'll work as well. You don't need anything massive. We're only going to basically recompound the CPU. But those are the things you need. Screwdriver, toothbrush, rag, alcohol, compound. One other note, guys, I recommend if this is the first time doing it, take your time. Don't rush. Make sure you have some time set aside, maybe on like a Sunday afternoon or something to do this. And if you have a few friends, maybe have someone come over and help you out with it, because there's going to be a couple parts that you might get frustrated with if you don't have maybe someone to help you out, grabbing the heatsink from the other side, or maybe just giving you an extra set of hands. But definitely make sure you have plenty of time and don't rush. Okay guys, first things we want to do is figure out how the case opens. In my case there is a latch on the side and 2 screws, one here, just standard Phillips head screws. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo those real fast. And at that point, the side should just kind of slide towards me. So what I'll do is I'll take these 2 screws out, put them to the side, and this should just slide towards me like that. And then we can lift it up. Put that side somewhere you'll remember, because we'll put it back on last, and let's take a look at the insides. So right away, guys, you're probably going to notice a lot of dust on the inside, especially down here. There's a lot of I can already see a lot of dust bunnies down here, and you're going to see a lot in any of these fans. Like this one has a lot. There's definitely a lot of this heatsink fan, and then just on the cables in general. Now, there's a couple things you can do. If you have a vacuum, you can use it. You just have to be careful. You want to use like the brush attachment, just kind of go along here. Don't use that on the motherboard at all. The reason I told you to get a toothbrush is because you can safely use a very light toothbrush on things like this. For example, any of the PCI slots down here. You can really just do that. You can get it out of there, and then you can kind of pick it up. You can also use compressed air, so you can get like a can of compressed air and kind of take it out, but keep in mind that's going to take the dust and it's going to just throw it everywhere. Using a vacuum on the bottom here is good. You can also grab a paper towel and just kind of scoop all this dust out. That's also a thing you can do. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check the power supply right here. Now the reason we're going to do that is we want to make sure it's a rating that will support the 1050. Looking for anywhere from 250 watts to 300 watts. If you there's a label here and you kind of scan this label, you'll see output 300 watts is what ours is right here. So this power supply is good. We don't need that PCI Express 6-pin for the 1050, so we're clear on that. We also need to make sure that we have a PCI Express slot, which is right here. It's the black slot here, and it has a white tab for us. It could be a black tab, but it's going to be it's going to be a PCI X16, and it's going to have a latch back here. That's what that looks like. It's one small notch here. You'll see a plastic divider, and then you'll see a long notch after that, and then a lifting handle. That's your PCI Express slot. If you've had your computer for, if you bought it in the last 5-6 years, you should have one of these in there. So you'll be good with that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this heatsink off. This is our CPU heatsink. You might have a different one depending on the processor. If you have an AMD one, you may have a latch system where it has a system here where you have a latch and you have to unclip it. Luckily, because we have an OEM manufacturer like Dell, they're going to mostly screw everything in. So you more than likely will only see a screw-in model like this. There's 4 Phillips head screws, here, 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 here. And all we do is we go around and we unscrew them. And the way you unscrew heat sinks, you loosen one, go diagonally to the one opposite, loosen that one, go down to the one just underneath of it, then finally to the last one you haven't touched yet, unscrew that one completely, and then go back to your starting screw and unscrew that one, and then the other should follow. The reason we do that is to loosen the tension as evenly as we can so that it does not damage the CPU underneath. And get the last one. Now when you pick this up, if it's stuck, if it doesn't want to move, don't pull on it super hard. You want to kind of try to free it, because there is like a thermal grease like this already under there, and sometimes it can actually kind of suck in air underneath, and it'll be like a suction cup you're trying to pull off of like glass. So what you want to do is, if it's not coming free, you want to kind of hold it and kind of turn it back and forth, and eventually it'll pop out and you'll feel it pop off there. More than likely though, it's going to come right off, no problem. In fact, looks like Dell did not put much of any compound on this heatsink and this CPU, so good for them. Now I zoomed in so you could see the CPU here. You can see there's barely any compound. It looks like they put just enough to cover the center, and it's super dry. There's like none of it even comes off. So we're going to probably actually get better temperatures anyway, so I always recommend doing this when you take it apart. When you take the side off, you might as well do this anyway, even if you're just putting a video card in. And the way we remove the CPU, if you end up wanting to upgrade in the future, this latch comes off. We're not going to take it out because we don't need to. This latch comes off and up. This part comes out. The reason I say that is some people may want to upgrade their CPU when they have it apart. You can do that. This shares a similar socket with an i3 2 series, so you more than likely could put an i3 or even an i5 in here if the cooling is right. I'm just going to close that back up. Now the reason I told you to get a paper towel and alcohol is for this reason here. We're going to clean the compound off. And the way we're going to do that, you're going to take your paper towel, put a little alcohol on it, and we're just going to wipe this down. The reason you use alcohol is sometimes the compound is kind of tough to get off. The alcohol just helps it off of there. Don't use water. Water will actually damage it. Alcohol works because it dries so quickly. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just make it as clean as you can. If you have a little left over, it's not the end of the world. I would certainly not remove the CPU if you're not comfortable. If maybe a little gets right in there, not a big deal. All the compound is for is to bridge the air gaps between the two pieces of metal. Not a big deal. Now on the heatsink side, you just want to take the heatsink and do the same exact thing on that. Just clean it off. Once you have that clean, we can go ahead and put that back on. First, what we're going to do though is we're actually going to clean the heatsink, so let's do that real quick. Okay, so we have our heatsink here. It's pretty standard heatsink. This one is nice enough to be very easy to work with, from what I can tell. So the reason we're going to take this apart, if you look in here, it might be kind of hard to see on camera, there is a lot of dust in here. And what that's going to do is it's going to make airflow very difficult for our fan when it spins, because even if it's trying to pull air in or pull air out, any blockage is going to make it hard for air to go through. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this fan. It's a clip system, luckily. Sometimes they're screwed in. If they're screwed in, you just got to unscrew it. Not a big deal. So you might fight some tension when you do this. Just take your time, like I said. No need to rush. Don't want to break any of those clips. If you do break any of the clips, you can usually
use like a zip tie if you need to. If you only break one out of the 4 though, it's not a big deal. So we get this apart. Look at all the dust in here. You know what that's going to do? That's going to block a lot of air. Temperatures would be pretty bad with this heatsink. They probably were before we did this. What I would recommend doing here, there's no reason you cannot, you can just vacuum this. There's no reason you can't. So I would get the vacuum fired up or take it outside and use compressed air to blow it out. Either one's fine. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so that's a world of difference right there. It looks much, much better. You can see completely through it. Took maybe 5 seconds to vacuum that out with the vacuum cleaner. Also went ahead and vacuumed out the fan, so the fan looks much cleaner too. So now all we have to do is reattach the fan. It's very easy. You're going to see here on the side, that tells us the direction of our airflow. This one was pulling air away from the heatsink, so we're going to stick with that fashion. I don't want to mess up whatever the OEM manufacturers, in this case Dell, had planned for it. So all we're going to do is line up, in this case, there are clips here, and we're just going to line those up as best we can to make sure it fits. And I'll tell you now, this part's always a pain, so take your time. Again, it's going to annoy the crap out of you, but it'll ultimately be worth it. Okay, there we go. Much better. Very clean. I also cleaned this part off here with some alcohol on the rag, and we are ready to reinstall, so let's do that. Okay, so we got our processor here. All we're going to do is take our thermal compound, and I will apply that. Let me just get any of the air out. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and apply that in a straight line from end to end. We don't need to put a ton of, you don't need to put a ton of compound on. Some people glop it on there. That's not doing anything, especially for this one where it's a Pentium. I can tell you now that die is literally probably the size of my fingernail on this CPU. So you don't need a lot. I'm just going to put enough like that. That's all we need, just like that. So we have that there. You want to line up your CPU fan cord right here. You want to line it up with the input here. It's notched, so you know which way to go. You just don't want to put it in like this and realize you can't get to it. So keep it lined up, in this case over here. Line up your 4 screw holes. There we go. And there we go. And we're going to tighten them again in a diagonal pattern. Tighten a little bit here, tighten a little bit here. Again on this side. And we'll loop around here. Tighten this one all the way down, it's fine. And then just tighten the rest down as you go. And then we're going to take our CPU fan plug and we're just going to go ahead and plug that straight in to the side here. Should have recorded temperatures before we did this. I bet you they'd be a lot better. Plug that in there. It shouldn't be hard to plug in. Don't force it. And there you go, guys. You just cleaned or changed your CPU. So let's say you get your nice new 1050 and you want to install it. Now, I don't have a 1050, obviously, because no one really does, but I wanted to at least show you how you would install it. This slot here is your PCI Express slot. Now, depending on how wide the card is, you'll definitely lose this slot. You may also lose this slot. Now, that kind of sucks because this one, for example, you could use for wireless. You could also use this one. The PCI Express 1, though, is much faster, so you would get much better speeds with it. You're going to lose this one because the 1050 is going to be probably at least that wide, I'd say. So you'll lose the one which could give you things like, it could give you Bluetooth, it could give you Wi-Fi, like I said, it could give you USB 3. You'll at least have one of them. So honestly, Wi-Fi kind of sucks no matter what you do, so I would just get like a PCI card if this is the kind of board you're working with. But to install the card, you want to remove this back plate here. They all have some sort of back plate that stops it from pulling off, so we're just going to go ahead. This one has one screw. So we would just unscrew it. Usually it's notched in some way. This one is. So they have one piece that holds all of those slots down right here. So you would take this off. You would take out the closest one to the ports here, because that's one lined up for that. If it's a double slot card, you would have to remove the next one. You'd sit it in here, clipping this down. This would lock. It's down like that. When you put it in, it would come up and it would lock around the ledge. And that's it. That's the nice thing about the 1050, guys. You don't need a 6-pin, which is awesome, because this is a computer that normally you'd have to upgrade things like the power supply to put another card in. And the 1050 is, from what I can tell, much faster than the 750 Ti by like a good margin. Even the 1050 Ti, from what I'm reading, does not have a 6-pin, which is amazing. So good on NVIDIA for attacking this market, because there's a lot of people who want to do things like play esport games, like Dota 2, like Overwatch, like Counter-Strike, but they don't want to buy a $2,000 computer to do it. In this case, you can buy a $130 video card and put it in your already made computer. But that's how you would install the video card. Let's close this guy up and do some final thoughts. So we're putting the side panel back on. Very easy. If you look here, there are notches that kind of match up to the inside of your case. So you want to take this guy. It's going to more than likely sit just off center to it like this. You should feel it fall down right there. Double check around to make sure it's flush on the insides like this. If everything is, all you have to do is push forward and it will line up with the front here. Take the 2 screws you took off before, or in your case, if you just have a latch, just make sure it clicks in. I have screws, so I'm just going to go ahead and screw these in. And this computer is all done and ready to go.
And honestly, guys, that's all there is to it. What you just did was you cleaned up your CPU, maybe you changed it, you installed a 1050 into an OEM computer like a Dell 560 Inspiron, or maybe you have an HP, for example, and it's pretty much ready to go. Fully refurbished, you guys cleaned it, installed a new video card that's going to give it a ton of life. Maybe if you just want to play Minecraft or any of the esports games, you are set. So definitely make sure you like the video. If you liked it, subscribe for any other videos like these. I'm more than happy to do anything related to computers or anything like that. I just wanted to see what you guys' interest was on that. And definitely let me know if you guys end up with a 1050 in a computer like this, how it performs, and if you guys like it, if it was a good investment. Remember, the regular 1050 MSRP is only $110. That's really cheap. $140 on the Ti version, which is probably worth it, to be honest. And but hope you guys liked the video, and I will see you next time.